everyone, welcome at a new Indie Dev Talk with indie developers. Well, last time we were talking about Kayenga's Seeds of Civilization, which was an RTS RPG. And this time we are going to enter a total different journey. As Thomas Waterzooi created total different experiences with his game Please Touch the Artwork. And I'm really curious, when it all started. Did it start?
I think it started about 4 or 5 years ago. I was actually reading a book called What Are You Looking At by Will Gumpert. Loosely translates Dutch to My Little Sister Can Do This As Well. So yeah, I don't know why they changed the title, but I was attracted by this title because I always had this mixed relationship with art myself. What should I feel? What should I think? My mother used to take me to a lot of museums when I was young, but it's still a very controversial subject, right? Art. But it's a very good book, and it basically sketches the journey of modern art from like the post-impressionists, end of the 19th century, until nowadays. But it's more anecdotal, right? It's about all of these painters and the rapidly changing industrialization of society and how they finally came to put their personal opinions on this society in their paintings. It was the first time in history that painters actually started doing that, right? Critique society. And it's this specific aspect, like this emergence of the path of the artist that I found very, very interesting. And so, yeah, combined with this interesting story, like I said, my mixed feelings for art, I felt kind of the need to do something with art and games, also to bring art to the people in a different form, in a way. You can say a lot about this. It's hard to pinpoint where it started exactly.
But then that book was about different kind of artists, right? So
Exactly.
Why did you took Piet Mondrian?
I guess it's because he was one of the first abstract painters. So don't get me wrong, I like Impressionism or Post-Impressionism as well, but it was still reality, right? They were still trying to copy reality. And what Mondrian did was, for the first time, I think he's literally one of the first ones, is to reach this concept of pure abstractness. So literally no connection with reality anymore whatsoever. Plus, I have to be honest, it's also because it was easier to translate to game visuals.
Yeah. Piet Mondrian, he kind of made New York City, right? Very abstract. So he kind of saw it in like blocks. So for him, it was really like going back to human. So I think that's interesting that you kind of felt that kind of separated from reality when you were looking at his work.
Well, yeah, as you say, New York City really, in my opinion, it looks like New York City. You could hardly call it abstract. I mean, you could definitely see he was influenced by his period living in New York City, because not a lot of people know this, but he actually moved to the US during World War II, right? So he fled the Nazis who were prosecuting a lot of modern artists, and his last 4 to 5 years of his life he lived in New York City, and he died there as well. So again, for me, the influence of the street patterns of New York, especially seen from the sky, right, is very clear in those works. But do they have meaning? I don't know. I like them for what they are as well. I just like them for the aesthetics, for the visuals, and for the vibrance. His works contain a lot of vibrance, which for me makes you start, dream about certain things behind the painting, let's say. Yeah.
There was one of the people in my community, and he was really wondering, like, did you contact, like, maybe inheritor of Mondrian stuff, or museum owners or art lovers while making this game?
No, I did want to do this like near the end, or still now. The problem is it's just me, right? So I'm a solo developer. I'm the only one that worked on this game. I do want to try to reach maybe even museums to see if I can sell my game through the museum or the museum shop, but that's just as an extra source of revenue, of course. I didn't want to really contact the inheritors, like you say, because my parents kind of warned me not to wake sleeping dogs. Although, I mean, all of the work of Mondrian is public domain. So technically there could not be any copyright issues. So yeah, maybe they could have helped in spreading the news of the game. That's true. They might still be able to do that in the future. It's just that I didn't really know how to approach them. And again, yeah, because I don't have the time to do it. But I just wanted to tell my own story, right? It was not that I wanted to do something in cooperation with a museum, because then you always get these influences, right? People want to put their stamp on the work. And I more than anything, I just wanted to use the art to tell my own stories. I didn't want it to be like an educational experience either. So it's not teaching you per se the rules of Mondrian, right?
Yeah, and like if you talk about the stories, it's most likely the Boogie Woogie, like the love story basically, and well, New York City, which is all about work, and that we just don't stop, right? That are the two stories you refer to. Or did I miss a story?
No, that's true. Those are the two biggest ones. The first one is about Mondrian. It's an anecdote.
I read a lot of Bible text kind of references.
Exactly. So the first game actually kind of tells the story of the creation of pure abstract art. And I used the Genesis, the story from the Bible about the creation of the earth as a template, but instead of the earth and God, I used we the people, and the canvas. So we created the canvas and we created all the colors to put on that canvas, right? And then you get all the primary colors, yellow, blue, red, the colors that Mondrian is so famous for, the lines, the horizontal and the vertical lines. But then more towards the end, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, but not too much, is that it actually becomes clear that it is also a dialogue between two artists, and they are actually having a discussion about horizontal lines and vertical lines versus diagonal lines. And apparently, and this is the cool part, apparently this is a real thing that happened between Piet Mondrian and his colleague Van Doesburg, who was a co-founder of their art movement, The Style. So apparently they got into a quarrel. So yeah, for me this is comedy, right? I can just see two painters that are just like arguing and fighting about the use of horizontal lines versus diagonal lines. So I just had to put it in the game. So this is the only truth-based story, actually, a little bit. Well, actually, we will never know, right? Some people say this led to the end of the art movement, The Style. Yeah.
Well, it introduced a new cell. That was basically what Mondrian did. That's what I heard from school when I did art studies, that he kind of opened a new kind of way of looking at art. Okay, are you from game development, just going to make a game, or did you have another job, or like how did you roll into it?
I'm actually an engineer, a photonics engineer, which is communication with light, optical fibers, LED, all that stuff. But I never worked as an engineer. When I was graduated, I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So I actually became aware of this professional bachelor here in Belgium that was teaching game development. In 3 years, you could like see everything about game development from A to Z, right?
Is it the DAA?
Exactly, digital arts and entertainment. Yeah, it was hard, but luckily, I was used to working hard as an engineer, so I got through it, and I got my first job at Larian Studios, which is the biggest Belgian game company. Little background history.
No, from Divinity, yes.
Exactly. So I worked on the first Divinity, actually. Not the first, I mean the Divinity Original Sin, sorry. Yeah, nice. So the first, let's say, big one, their big breakthrough game, I think, was Divinity Original Sin. And then I moved to Copenhagen, to work on the first reboot of the new Hitman.
Yeah, you've been around.
I've been around. Didn't realize I was at the start of two new, well, they're not new IPs, but like, let's say reboots of two big IPs. But yeah, then I realized I didn't really want to work on these games that are typically about shooting people or violence or fighting. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love those two games. Wonderful people in the industry, but it was just not what I wanted to continue doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you profile yourself as a solo developer, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will see more games from you.
Hopefully, yeah. So please touch the artwork was my first solo released game. It took me a long time to actually figure out what I did want to make, because as I said, I knew what I didn't want to make, which were basically games where the main mechanic was violence. But that doesn't mean that I had like a clear idea of like, oh yeah, I want to make this. I've always been jealous of people that have these clear ideas about what they want to do in their life. I never had this. I wanted to do so much stuff. There's so much fun things to do. Yeah. So never had this story or something. Like, I'm also not really a writer. I mean, I tried writing in this game, but I want to tell stories, but yeah, I didn't know how either. So very like step by step, start small, and been a hell of a journey.
So, I mean, are you working on a new game?
I am, yeah. For a while thinking of actually making a sequel, with other painters, basically, because there's a lot of painters out there that could still, that still deserve also a little more attention, definitely in the game spectrum, right? Because there's not that many games that are based on real existing art in comparison to first-person shooters, for example. And I want to do Kandinsky, that's sometimes even a bigger name worldwide than Mondrian. Malevich, he's a bit less known. He made the Black Square. There's Paul Klee, that's also on my list.
There's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do, yeah. Mainly abstract painters. But yeah, as I said, it was kind of to make it easy on myself, because it's very hard to translate realistic art to gameplay, right? Because you need to be artistically also very talented. So because I'm alone, I chose the simple art style of Mondrian as well. Like, I have to be honest, that was one of the reasons, of course. I really like the art, but that was one of the reasons. I could like procedurally generate all the levels, because that's also how I did it. The levels are...
I noticed that with the Boogie Woogie, that they procedurally, if you kind of miss the clicks, for example, you have a little bit of a difference, right?
Exactly.
But that's still that it works with the same clicks.
Exactly.
That's what I noticed.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Yeah. In the end, I mean, I don't think it really mattered. Thought it was going to save me time, but there was this person that it didn't really, but also an important remark. Like, this person, I don't remember who it was, some kind of review somewhere. He said like, yeah, but I prefer 50 super well designed puzzles over 500 average puzzles. So in the end I was thinking like, yeah, it's true, maybe I should have just drawn them manually. And people don't even realize that you're playing a different game than I am. They don't realize it, right? Unless you put them next to each other. So
I just realized it with the puzzle, like oh, I cannot do the same trick because it's a different level.
You have to think.
Yes. How do you start to make a level from like a kind of a painting of Mondrian? Like, do you start like with the painting, or do you start like, wait, how do you
How do you start?
How do you start?
Exactly. Good question. I think it's kind of important to mention in the realm of game design is that I chose a visual first approach, right? So I mean, I don't know if this is a common term, but I call it the visual first approach, in the sense that the majority of game developers, they start from a mechanic and gameplay right? But I started from a painting that I liked, and first I tried to procedurally generate it. Yeah, that was my strangely, that was the first thing I decided to do, instead of coming up with a fun mechanic. I was like, no, I want to know if I can spit out 1 million Mondrian paintings, right? And yeah, it kind of worked, but then of course you're still like, okay, what's next? How am I gonna turn this into a fun experience? But the first one, the style game, which is mainly adding colors and lines to the painting, and the whole Genesis story, was the one that was made the first and was the one that came the easiest. So it almost existed the same evening as when I actually implemented the procedural generation. I thought like, okay, wouldn't it be fun? If you clicked here, then all the squares around that square would change color. Like literally just like that. Okay, let's implement it. And then, the first game was done in a couple of days. More or less. I mean, let's say the base mechanic, right? The base mechanic. Of course, then it took me 4 more years to make it actually interesting. But when I then started on Boogie Woogie, all of a sudden I was like, okay, I really like this painting. Yeah, let's again try to procedurally generate it. But actually, the real painting is way more complex, right? I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a pretty detailed painting. You have a lot of lanes, you have a lot of different colors. And I was thinking like, okay, but if I ever want to, play this on mobile, you're gonna have too much information, right? The player is not gonna get what all of these things mean. So I have to like tone it down. Coming up with this whole bringing Boogie and Woogie together mechanic, circumventing obstacles, was way more difficult than the first puzzle. I will always say that the first puzzle is also the best puzzle, ironically, because I didn't have to think about it. It just came naturally. So
kind of Newton's spoof.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how it works. How it works, right? Sometimes you just know what you're going to make. Like, did you have a target audience in mind?
No, I mean, the only thing I know that I wanted it to be calm, relaxing. I didn't want stress, right? Because this is what actually got me away from all of these violence-based games. I found them too stressful. So I wanted a calm experience, relaxing music, no skills-based, very accessible. Basically, my mother would have to be able to play it. That was one of my prerequisites. So I just knew that, and almost automatically, you end up with a slow-paced puzzle. Because if you just look over all the existing game genres, or it becomes maybe like a drawing tool, but then it's more a tool or a toy, a bit like Townscaper. That's a real toy. It's not really a game. I mean, I'm happy to call it a game, but so automatically the next genre is puzzles. So that was apparently my target audience. But I never designed with a specific target audience in mind, which you will see if you play the game New York City, the third game.
It's totally different.
It's totally different, and it's almost not a puzzle anymore. It's a maze, which is technically a puzzle. Right, but it's way easier and way more relaxing, way more story driven a little bit.
But with that game, I was so impressed because I felt like, oh, there's a bit of like a drag, like it's the same, but you just find the right moment to change it a little bit. I think. Did you just play that to like the heart, or did you were just lucky?
No, it's not luck, but it can definitely be fine-tuned, right? That's always the thing with any experience. I think whether you're making a game or a movie or writing a book, after a while you have to introduce these changes, right? These beats, keep the player or the reader engaged. Since it was a pretty boring mechanic, solving mazes. We know it, or you really like it or you don't. It's maybe like solving a Sudoku or solving a crossword puzzle. Like a lot of people like it because they do it so many times. But anyway, like a lot of people probably won't like to do this for an hour. So I had to introduce some changes. And I don't know if I succeeded. Maybe for some people I have. Everybody's different, right? Everybody has a different attention span. So I just did my best when I felt that it was getting a bit too boring or too much of a drag, I tried to introduce something new. It was not an accident.
No. It was just more like because I felt like, oh, that must have been fine tuned to the max. Something else that's more maybe fine tuned is the jazz music. Did you make that yourself even, or did you outsource that?
Yeah, actually the music is the only thing in the game that I outsourced. It was actually made by a Dutch composer, a Dutch guy, and I met him at Indigo. It was actually also my first festival that I showed the game, and he was playing and he was very excited, and then he said like, okay, I want to make music for this game for you.
So
and then we started
immediately mixed, I like this game, I want to make music, and you were like, I like the music and let's do this.
Yeah, well, I didn't know his music back then. I'm actually a pianist myself, so I can compose stuff. So I invited him to come to Brussels. Okay. And we kind of composed a bit during the evening. It's always difficult to specify what you want, but the only thing that I thought would be nice is only use instruments or let's say music that would be in existence during the time that Mondrian lived, because I wanted to recreate the ambience as if he was painting in his atelier, you know? As if he was painting in his workshop, thinking like, what would Mondrian have heard on the radio maybe, or on the record players when he was like in New York painting, looking out the window, painting his paintings. And this is kind of the experience I wanted to recreate.
Wow.
But music,
nice.
Yeah, that's the story.
That's really cool. I love that.
So, thanks. But music is a difficult thing, and definitely in puzzle games you have to watch out that it doesn't become too distracting. And I played this other game, I forgot the name, but what they did really well is that no clear rhythm. You know, a lot of music has a clear rhythm pattern. What that other game did is like it had a lot of long stretched notes, very, very soft as well. But sometimes it would like pause a little and then all of a sudden introduce this loud note, which would kind of wake you up again, like you did before. you woke up the people, and it's like, yeah. And I like this because it's like, okay, you're looking at this puzzle and you're like, how do I have to solve this? And the music is like a little bit going, and then sometimes it's like,
wake up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was really cool to make. All the segments are also randomly, procedurally.
Oh, even the music.
Yeah, even the music. Yeah. So it's not that the notes are procedurally generated. That would be a bit too far-fetched. It's just that we have all of these little
too modern for the Mondrian time.
Exactly. No, it's just like little segments, and we put them in a random order, but so that they still sound nice.
Okay, that's interesting. And just normally I can really see what kind of engine someone used, but at this one it could be any which
it could be anything. It's Unity. Yeah,
it's Unity. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know specifically why it just happened to be the engine I started working in. I actually, before I started in Unreal, but since it was a 2D game, didn't make sense to go to Unreal. I can do both. I think it was because there were a lot of assets on the store that I could use.
Oh, so this is interesting. So you kind of use assets from the Unity store? Like what kind of?
Yeah, I think everybody does. I mean, this is...
No, I understand. I just want to know what kind of...
Well, actually, for example, for the localization, I mean, there's a very good tool. It's called i2 localization. There's DoTween, which is a very good tool for animation. Odin Inspector to make kind of your custom windows, custom tools. So these kind of tools, definitely convenient.
Cool. That are also good advices for the people that are watching, because those are the good tools to use in Unity. You know, the market is full of random stuff as well.
Yeah, true. There's indeed a lot of tools, and it's always a risk also to start using a tool because it clutters your project sometimes. And
for sure.
But sometimes you need to. Yarn. I used Yarn, which is like a free tool for dialogues as well. I think it was used made even by the makers of Around the World in 80 Days, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, they created like this scripting language for branching dialogues. And I use it for the intro, where you have like the museum's ambassador that has a little dialogue with you.
I just wonder, did you self-publish it or did you find a publisher?
I did self-publish, yes. On mobile, I self-published, so it's on Android and on iOS. On Steam also, that was co-released. And then I released almost 9 months later on Switch with a publisher. So only the Switch release was with a publisher, yeah. By then, I was just so sick of it because it's so much work. And yeah, he contacted me. He's a publisher that's really into artful games, and he knows the whole discount game. I have to call it what it is. It's a discount game, and he knows what to do and how to get higher up in the lists and stuff. He's doing pretty well. I think we sold 15,000 copies recently. Sadly, it was at like €1 per piece, or $2 per piece.
Because you had an anniversary, right? The 1 year anniversary, yes. And then everyone went in to get your game.
But I don't mind. The game has to be cheap. I mean, it can be cheap. I'm not against that. That was also part of the philosophy. Like accessibility is really key. That's why I went mobile in the first place, right? Because probably a lot of people will be wondering, like, why mobile and why premium?
Yeah, that's very challenging.
Probably in your question list somewhere.
Yes.
So yeah. That's the reason. It's purely accessibility. I was like, everybody has a phone in their pockets, right? There's more phones in this world than people.
That's true. Yes.
So this idea is just crazy. So we're actually all carrying a gaming console, but for some reason, the market is so fucked up, which is a pity. But I was naive. I said, okay, I know the market is fucked up, but if we don't try, I just do it. If we don't try, then we'll never be able to change anything either. So
yeah, it's a mobile market now as a solo developer. Whoa, that's a challenge. Yes.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna do it again. This is if someone has this question, it's like, I might go for PC.
So after you worked at Larian and Hitman, then you kind of went full blown for yourself. But did you do it just really full blown, or did you were I still do some side jobs on the side to just have some stable income, or were you just taking all of the risks? How was your hassle to get into it?
Actually, when I was still working on Hitman, so it's a company based in Denmark. I moved there for a while, but my girlfriend, my partner, was still living in Belgium. So I started missing her. and I moved back. Actually, little side note, this is also what the story in New York City is about.
Yeah, the Boogie Woogie, Yes.
No, in New York City.
Oh,
no. The Boogie Woogie is more of a Romeo and Juliet. I know it can be confusing, but it's not that important.
Is it the Boogie? Okay.
But New York City is actually about the feeling of excitement of going to a new city, a big city, right? In my case, that was Copenhagen, and the excitement of starting a new job at a big company, but also the feeling of maybe a little bit loneliness or feeling homesick, missing your friends and family back home. And that's actually more what the poem, because it's actually more a poem story, is about. But anyway, so I moved back to Belgium, long story short, but I could luckily still work freelance for them. Yeah, that was a great opportunity they gave me.
A good deal.
Yeah, that's a very good deal. And I was paid really well, really royally, because I don't know if you know, but in Denmark, the wages are higher because the living costs are also just higher.
Yes.
But then they lost their publisher, which is Square Enix, and they had to fire half of the company. And we're talking 2015, 2016 here.
Okay.
So yeah, basically I already started a company in Belgium because I was an independent, I was a freelancer. So I didn't want to pay too much taxes on all of that Danish money. So yeah, I had a company. So all of a sudden I was like, okay, yeah. It was kind of a golden cage. I always wanted to become an independent, but obviously if you're in such a well-paying job, you're not always prone to do this. But all of a sudden, I had no other choice, so I started thinking like,
kind of fate was like, okay, I fire you, so you are going to to go full blown.
Do your own stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. That's true story. So then I started looking into government subsidies. You know, we have this organization here that puts a lot of money in Flemish games. It's only the Flemish part. This is Belgian politics.
That is the top north for everyone, right? That's not the French part.
Exactly. Like, don't get me started on the politics here. It's insane. But basically, wrote a dossier, came up with some kind of idea. It didn't work. So it was a game about traveling, kind of a journey game, but in trains. I wanted to do something with trains. You see, I always pick these kind of romantic subjects, you know, I don't know, traveling, trains, paintings. That's I think that's kind of my thing. Things about real life, people. I like emotions and the quirkiness of people, the strangeness of being human. That's really my main subject. Anyway, so but that I didn't get the money and I didn't give up, and I did some stuff on the side. Almost everybody does. I did some freelance work here and there, little jobs here and there, but I did have a lot of savings, so that made it also a bit easier for me. And then I did the Please Touch Your Artwork thing. Also asked for government subsidies. This time I did successfully receive them. That's what kept me going. Yeah.
If I hear correctly, you were first like making a game about trains, and then you read a book about the old art, like the painters, and then you were like shifting at that moment?
Exactly.
Or? Okay, yes, that happened.
Sometimes you have to drop things like
kill your darling.
Kill your darlings.
Nice.
And that's the thing. It was not even a darling. I was just still figuring out what kind of game I want to make. I'm still figuring this out. You know, I think you're starting to notice a pattern here, right? I'm just like, okay, maybe art. Oh, that could cool. Oh, yeah, that would be nice. Maybe put these stuff together. And sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. So voila.
So
maybe in the future.
The new game will be most likely. It's still not clear. Or what are you working on?
I don't want to spoil too much, but I want to do something with bookshelves. Romance around books. It's a combination of the books themselves, right? The identity of a bookshelf, also the souvenirs on that bookshelf.
Okay.
That's it. It's the cozy bookshelf.
Cozy bookshelf, and it's also good with your background.
Yeah.
It's your background.
I'm not really here. This is a fake video. But I do like the rain. I'm really a fan of rain. That's actually also one of my games will be about rain. I can tell you. I mean,
you already
there was rain
into your game already rain. So
exactly.
We are going to see more rain and books. So that will be interesting.
I love the rain,
And are you planning to just keep on being a solo developer, or are you at some moment thinking, okay, wait, I also want to work with other people, or what is your feeling about that?
I would love to work with other people, but I don't know. I'm a lone wolf, as they say. I'm an only child. You know, I always had to play by myself. No. I had friends. I had friends as well. Okay. But overall, I'm a bit more of an introvert than an extrovert. I can be very extroverted, but I'm a bit more of an introvert. And what I find difficult is just finding people that are on the same wavelength as you are. And you almost have to accidentally meet each other, right? It's like the Beatles meeting each other was such a leap of fate or whatever in history. It doesn't happen that often that so many talented people come together and make something together, right? Because you always have to compromise, right? All of a sudden there's two people with maybe two slightly different ideas, and you have to find the middle ground that works. And usually when I meet people that I really like, that I really think their ideas are good, they already have their own strong ideas. You see what I mean? They already know what they want to make. So it's like, I don't want to join their idea either, or I don't want to influence their idea, you know, and so they have to compromise their idea because I don't like it. It's kind of a strange dynamic there, right? So
no, I get it. Yeah, that's totally like when you do it on your own, you have all the freedom, and you are only the person that you can disappoint and not the others. So about disappointment or whatsoever, what was the biggest challenge by making this game?
Yeah, making it all come together. I guess make a consistent package, because you asked before, like, what kind of audience were you making this game for? And I never really had that in mind, right? I was never working on it from a commercial or marketing perspective, which is not that smart in hindsight, but it does allow you to do whatever you want, right? Without any inhibitions, or how do you say? Yeah, at the end I had these 3 completely different games, as you now have seen, and I had to wrap them in a nice package, you know, put a little bow on it, and then send it out, and hopefully people would get what it is. And I think it all comes down to managing expectations. That is basically what marketing is. That's what I've learned in the last couple of years. People need to get what they're buying. That was really hard because, first of all, the game was pretty mobile looking. So that's already one part, 2D mobile. But it's also, ironically, it's abstract, right? Because it is about abstract art, but it also
it's very
abstract. And the puzzles are abstract, and it's not conventional, and all of these things don't help into making people understand what they are buying. That was definitely my biggest challenge, and now I'm thinking about this way more, which sometimes I also think like, it might not be a good thing. It's a good thing business wise, but creative wise it might not be a good thing, because you feel restrictions way faster. You're like, oh no, I cannot do that because it might be too different, people will not get it. And I'm thinking way more commercial now. That's the thing I noticed.
So now you're saying that you think more commercial. Like what was the shift in that?
Well, I mean, the game is 1 year old, right? We celebrated the 1 year anniversary in January, and I just noticed like it's doing well. It's not enough to sustain. Got some rewards. I won the Google Play Indie Festival, nominated for an Apple Design Award. So on the platforms, the mobile platforms, I was actually pretty well received by the platforms themselves. Again, difficult market. This didn't really convert into sales per se. Again, I cannot complain, but I'm not rich. Hence the shift, I guess, also probably in platform. I'm still doubting. I'm still in between, like, maybe now people know me a little bit. I know the platforms. I have contacts at Google. I have contacts at Apple. It might be easier to get a second game out there. So it's not off the table, but again, there is a little shift there. Yeah, I guess that was the idea. Like, if I want to make this into a sustainable business,
you need to think as a businessman. That's
exactly
basically it.
Exactly. That's the short answer.
Okay. Because some people watching here, they're all maybe excited to start their indie adventure. Like, do you have some tips for them?
My biggest tip is don't listen to me, or don't listen to any other person giving you tips. That's my biggest tip. Just trust your gut, trust your intuition. It will get you the furthest, unless you're not a very intuitive person. But then this business might not be for you. Everybody has a different opinion. You know, the most given tip is start small.
Yeah.
That's like the most cliche tip out there. Like, don't make your first game super
MMO.
big. Yeah, exactly. And the irony is that we've seen plenty of examples that actually did that and did succeed. You know, the guy from Stardew Valley. There's people that have been working 6, 7, 8 years of their lives.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe not the first game, but anyway.
But their passion project. Yeah. But that's literally what I like to interview. So yeah, I have also interviewed, like, for example, Eric Rampin last time. What was Kayenga, which was 7 years passion project. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, for every of those successes, there's probably 99 people that didn't make it, of course. But, you know, if you want to try, and you can, you're young, you don't have obligations, why not? This is how new things happen.
Yeah.
There's no formula, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
I mean, it's basically art, right? Game design is art, so you don't know when it's really going to stick. But of course, like you were saying, nowadays you're thinking much more about your marketing, so you already have setting a mindset, of course. So there are some ways. Though.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm also the product of all of the media that I've consumed throughout my life, right? I'm a big Seinfeld fan, for example. I love Seinfeld. I don't know if you've seen it. This sitcom from the 90s, actually. Like the predecessor of Friends, almost. It's a show about nothing, but they say that themselves, right? One of the episodes is actually where they get to make a TV show, and they say like, okay, what's the TV show going to be about? And they're discussing, and they say like, yeah, nothing. It's just going to be a show about nothing. Like just this, us talking. Anyway, and this is genius. That's true. It's a show about nothing, but it's a show about everything at the same time, right? It's a show about people, and I was greatly influenced by that. And this is also what I want to bring to games. These little vignettes of life. I think there's a lot of room for exploration in that direction, in many directions. I mean, games have been so focused on this action part, or like a lot of games for a long time, because of the interactive nature of games, obviously. But it's a good thing, because it leaves, like I said, a lot of room for small developers like me to explore new ideas. While in the film world, way more stuff has already been experimented with, right?
For sure.
So it's a great era to be alive, or to be a game developer, I think. Yeah.
Nice, I like that. What is exactly the goal of the game, apart from just, telling your story? But is it to get people interested in art, or more art people interested in games?
It's funny that you phrase it like that, because I phrase it like that exactly the same, as in both. Right, it's for people that don't often go to museums, or are not really, interested in art, to maybe accidentally play it because they like the puzzle aspect of it or whatever, and then get inspired to go visit this person's work. And vice versa, also someone that's into art but doesn't game that much by word of mouth or whatever, gets to play my game and sees how games can also be different, right? So it's a bit of a paradox, because in a sense I'm targeting non-gamers, you could say.
Yeah.
I think there's a little crossover of people that actually are interested in games or in the concept of gaming, but don't think the medium actually addresses their needs, because they don't see enough of the possibilities the medium can bring them. Because it is a medium, right? It's a medium
for sure.
that can provide anything you want. And I think there's a little crossover. Like I said, some people will never game, some people game, but I think there's people that don't game but might be interested in some topics. This was actually also part of my inspiration. It's a talk by Pietro Rigiriva.
Okay.
It's an Italian game designer. Actually, it's a manifest, and it's called Manifesto Rejecta. Definitely worth checking out. It's like 10 rules that kind of guide game designers into making games for what he calls a new audience. These people that are interested in many things in their daily adult lives, because it's really focused on adults, like art, society, politics, the human condition, romance, etc., relationships, but don't feel like these topics are represented in the medium of games. So these are 10 rules which he thinks that would improve making games that those people would like as well. So that's a really interesting thing. I actually now realize that I forgot to mention it, because it influenced me a lot, because it is what I was feeling as well. Like, I want to make games for adults, accessible games.
Not always shooting or killing.
Yeah,
that was what you said.
And also just accessible games for people that don't often game, but that are obviously interested in many other things in their daily lives. And then came this guy that all of a sudden, made a list for me. So that was like, oh, thank you. I just have to follow. Just have to follow your rules, and then I'm there. But they're very restrictive. They're very hard rules. For example, they say like you should always work with someone outside of your industry and let yourself be influenced by other people, writers, musicians, photographers, whatever. Don't take topics from like existing game geek culture. Try to take realistic topics, author-driven things, author-driven games. Accessibility was one thing, and no previous gaming experience should be required. Cheap games, that's also a thing. But the first rule is immediately like too hard, and I didn't do this. He says like, yeah, games should actually stand by themselves, as in time should actually be continuous. So what he means is that usually in a game you interact with something and then something else happens, right? It's very event based, where you enter a trigger and then something happens. But in the real world, even if you don't do anything, the real world continues to exist, right? To evolve. And he says like, yeah, it would be a nice experience to have a game where even if the player doesn't do anything, the story still unravels. You're just not a part of it.
Yeah, but then you take away the control that games kind of give, right?
Yeah, but maybe that's a cool thing. Maybe that is something that some players are looking for, and it can create nice different experiences.
Yeah, we see it in idle games, for example, or like that environments change or whatsoever. That's we see that a lot, but indeed not yet how cultural society things are changing in a kind of well, maybe we'll see it with AI kind of, because it's kind of randomizing a lot of stuff, right? Because then you have the influence of the player is gone, and then the influence of the game world, right?
It's not that it's gone, it's just that there is an alternative path where the player didn't have influence. There is one path where the player has influence and does influence the story, but there is also one where he didn't, like where he was just a passive viewer. Let's say there's a murder happening. You land on an island and there's a murder happening, but you just stand on the sidelines and you watch the murder happen, or you decide to interact or come in between and prevent the murder. Like this will heavily branch the stories.
In that kind of way. I get what you mean now. Yes. Okay.
So, but practically this is very hard to do, as we all know as game designers, because we want all the content that we made to really be visible, you know, and
it will be a lot of work to make a lot of things that will not be seen.
Exactly. Usually they solve this with like time loops. For example, I don't know if you played 12 minutes. It's kind of the Groundhog Day, you know, restart of the day.
Yes.
So in this way, you can have like, okay, I'm not going to do anything, but you know, after 12 minutes, the day is going to restart anyway.
Exactly.
So,
but that is now done, right?
Then we have to come up with something new.
Exactly. Oh wow, this is a very interesting talk. So many different insights, and we also went a bit in philosophy. Which I really love as well, so that's really great. Is there some last thing that you want to say before we are going to say goodbye?
You're kind of surprising me. Buy the game, please.
Yes,
support small
Thomas.
indies. So I can make more cozy, relaxing indie games.
In my description there is always the link to the game, so don't worry about that. And of course, if anyone has any more questions in mind, please just hit me up, comment, DM or whatsoever, and then we will come back at you as well, because I think Thomas has a lot more to say and there's a lot more to come, so I'm really excited for that. Thank you very much for joining in, and good luck with your new title, which will be something interesting with books and
thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this journey. I did. And next interview will be with the audio award winner of the GDC 2023. So that will be also a very interesting interview. So if you don't want to miss anyone, subscribe, ring the bell, and of course, if you're nice, give a like. This was Acreate, create more, enjoy more.